Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Philosophy with Farron Lane. In today's episode, we'll be talking about quite a specific theme, just finding your purpose. Now, this is a completely different topic from finding the meaning of your life, which we have talked about in the first episode. We will get into it. Meaning is kind of how to interpret all this, what this all represents, what it expresses. As we will find out, purpose is a whole different thing. Purpose is more about what to do with this thing I have been given, with this consciousness I have been given. So what do I do with it? As it turns out, this is actually very, very complicated. It is not a simple topic. I have put a lot of research into this, a lot of personal thinking, and I think I've kind of figured it out, even though it's very, very hard to understand the purpose of one's life specifically. It makes it much easier from understanding the purpose of life in general. That's a whole different topic. It's on some metaphysical plane, some ontological stuff, and well, fortunately, we don't really have to be bothered with it. Since we're only looking at the purpose of our life specifically, well, it's much easier to answer. One very important thing I would say before we start off is one thought that one of my philosophy teachers told me. And it's quite an interesting thing to think about. And for the purpose of this video, I have to show it to you. So, in case you're listening and not watching, I'll try to describe the visualization. So, we have the start of life. Imagine a circle, right? This is the start of life, you being born. Now, life goes on. There's a straight line. There are some moments in the present. So, life is built from these present moments. And then it ends with death. Now, since we are approaching this purpose thing philosophically, it's very important to note that you have this life that goes on, there's these present moments, ends with death, but, well, does it continue after death? And we won't really be bothered with answering this, but it is very important to note, as my professor told me, you will approach life very differently if you view it as something as just this thing of present moments between being born and dying, or as something that transcends this and will continue after. Now, for the purpose of this video, we will use the most, I would say, reasonable take to have. And I'm not saying that is the way it is, but for me, that's the most reasonable way to approach life, and we will approach it like this. We'll try and approach it from the perspective that your life is just between being born and dying. So that would be your life. But the universe and whatever continues after your death. That's just a standard approach we will take for the purpose of this video. Approaching how to find your life's purpose. So therefore, we won't really be bothered too much about what will happen after you die. But we'll take it into consideration. Like, if you want to build a legacy, if you want to make a mark on this earth, well, we'll make that a part. So we'll assume that the universe continues after you die, but you don't. You just have this one life, this one thing. That's just to make it clear for the purpose of this video. So, finding your purpose. How do we start with this? How do we approach this? It seems like a simple topic. Well, just find your purpose, but like how? What even is a purpose? So let's first off start with a simple formula we have used before. We will approach it this way. Purpose. So what it is, why it is, and how to approach it. This is the essential for when we want to philosophically dive deeply into something and really understand it. I think this is the standard formula to have. What it is, why it is, how to approach it. So let's first start off with a definition. So what we as humans understand with the words purpose. We use words to describe something, and this is something that is very tough to say. Is it innately in us? Has it always existed? Do we need it? But it's something we have. In the human world we live in, it's something that we go by. It's a very important thing to us, clearly. So we have a word for it, and it clearly does exist. So the standard definition of purpose that I have found is that it is why you do something or why something exists. That's quite interesting. It seems that it's very similar to meaning. We have talked before about when something has meaning to you, it is why you would do it. Because it's to you, it's meaningful. And necessarily, it can also be purposeful. And it seems like a whole different thing. Let's try and read some examples of using the word purpose, and then we will dive more into it. So some examples of the word purpose is: the purpose of the research is to try to find out more about the cause of the disease. His only purpose in life seems to be to enjoy himself. It's quite an interesting sentence. So his only purpose in life seems to be to enjoy himself. Her main/primary purpose in suing the newspaper for libel was to clear her name. I came to Brighton for/with the express purpose of seeing you. So it seems as purpose almost seems to be kind of this hidden intent. It necessarily doesn't really have to be said out loud, and it can be assumed or claimed. It's very important to say, because you can see in these sentences that it says his only purpose in life seems to be to enjoy himself. And now it would almost seem that in this sentence, the most important part of it is that his purpose is just to enjoy himself, but actually the most important part is that it seems. And that's very interesting. So it's a factual thing. We all know that perspective creates reality. The way you view things, well, that's quite simply the way you will view them. So one person may look at this human being and say, well, his only purpose in life seems to be to enjoy himself. And he might claim that, well, that is not the case, but we need to differentiate that. Another example here is a multi-purpose kitchen knife. This is quite the most simple definition. The purpose is very simple when it comes to objects. Most objects, I would say, and practically all objects, are literally multi-purpose. Just because some kind of market person doesn't tell you that it has multiple purposes, like every single object, look at an object you have in your room and think about two purposes to use it. For example, I have a glass over here. So the standard purpose would be for me to grab it and drink from it. And what would be a different purpose? Well, let's say I'm angry, I'm very, very angry, and I want to ventilate my anger. Well, I can take this fucking glass and throw it against the wall. That would be some kind of purpose. If there's a guy that comes into my house and tries to rob me, I can use it as a weapon. I'm trying to think, what would be another purpose? Maybe another purpose would be as some kind of satisfactory object I can just knock onto with my nails. And if I would think longer, I would definitely think of more purposes. The whole point is, with objects, it's very simple. Most objects, they have multiple purposes. With us personally, this is where the difference comes in. And this is why this sentence, this usage of the word purpose in the sentence is so important. In this sentence, when we say that his only purpose in life seems to be to enjoy himself, it's because you don't really have this static thing. You have kind of two sides of it. It's the way we look at the person, the purpose of him, and it's the thing he claims. And then there's a whole third different part of trying to scientifically see what actually is the actual purpose. So it's quite a complicated word to get into. Let's read some other example. She had the operation entirely for cosmetic purposes. So quite literally, the most simple definition of the word purpose would genuinely be why you would do something. What was it for? What was kind of the thing you were trying to achieve with it? What was it supposed to give the world or you? Another example. I can see no useful purpose in continuing this conversation. Now, that's quite an interesting thing. So what I found out in my research is that we look at purpose almost black and white. Either something has purpose or doesn't have purpose. It's a very bad thing to do. There are many situations, and we will learn further in this presentation, where it seems that something has no purpose. We have the definition over here that says that purpose is why you do something or why something exists. I think existence itself is filled with purpose. We might not understand it, but like in our human grasp of things, we need purpose. We can see it in anything. Everything leads to something. There is always a purpose to an action. It will have an aftermath. It will have some kind of reaction. Every action causes a reaction. Therefore, every existence, every existing thing has to have a purpose. It then says, all my efforts were to no purpose. Very interesting. So we can kind of see that some people have a goal in mind. And if you do not achieve this goal, therefore it seems you haven't achieved your purpose. It's quite interesting that this word, it seems so simple, but the more you dive into it, the more you realize, like, we don't really understand this. If we look at the etymology, I tried to look at the origin of the word purpose. So the very starting point was that there were two words from Old French. Now, one is just pour, which you put before a word, right? Literally just means fourth. And the other is poser. I'm not sure if it's read this way. It's French, so it probably is. It would be something like poser. That means to put / place. So you have fourth and to put place. So out of those two words, poser, poser, PORPOSER, to put forth. Now, it would seem to me to put forth something is to make it important. I'm pretty sure it's not quite the literal action of you grabbing an object and putting it forth, which out of that originated the Anglo-French word purpose, spelled PURPOS. And that would quite literally be called aim/intention. And out of that, we have today's purpose. Intention, aim, goal. So if something has a purpose, not only saying that it is why something would exist, why we do something, it would also be the intention behind it, the aim, and the goal. In life, well, we have a limited time on this earth. So why do we need purpose? That's the important question we ask over here. Why is there a necessity for purpose? Well, one very reasonable argument is that that is the way we function as rational, conscious human beings. Since we are humans, we have kind of transcended, well, to a certain point, we still have our animalistic nature. I mean, a shit ton of it. But we kind of have transcended this whole existence just through our animalistic nature, right? This whole blind existence. We're not... That is what differentiates us, this rationale, this wisdom, the logos. That is what differentiates us from different animals, right? And that is the thing. That is the one thing that actually does create this purpose. Because as long as you are conscious, as long as you are not living a passive existence, which is eating, shitting, and sleeping, then it's kind of a gift and a curse at the same time. Because suddenly you have this responsibility. You realize, why am I here? And then that's where you start searching for purpose. So that is what brought us the word purpose and our understanding of it. It's quite interesting to see that the very starting point of the etymology of the word purpose was in a Greek word, pauin, Pauiin, which meant to stop, hold back, arrest, to cause to cease. I have no idea how these motherfuckers, they realized it. That, like, instead of they went from to stop to intention/goal, like, how did this start to exist? No idea. But whatever. I'm not an etymologist. I admire these people that they figure this shit out. So we have figured out what purpose kind of is in our understanding, why it is, but then how do we approach it? How do we look at it? Well, first of all, we need to look at the crucial difference of purpose/meaning, just to make sure that we understand that it is not the same thing. It is very different, but it's very similar, and it can easily be mistaken for each other. So, we read purpose. If we read the definition of the word meaning, it says that it is the meaning of something, is what it expresses or represents. The word flight has two different meanings: plane journey and the act of running away. The meaning of his gesture was clear. His novels often have a hidden meaning. So, we have said in our first video that when we look at the meaning of something, we can either look at the objective meaning, which would literally be called a definition, or we can look at the subjective meaning, and that is what it evokes in us, what it makes us feel, right? What it really... I don't want to use a circular definition and say what it means to us, but that's kind of the best way to describe it. So when we look at meaning, objectively, this is quite literally the information, the content something gives us. What it describes, what it signifies. Like, objectively, we disregard the personal interpretations, and if we ask the meaning of something, Well, we literally say what it is. What is the meaning of an apple? We would show an apple, and this is an apple. What is the meaning of life? Life is conscious experience for however many years you're going to live, right? But subjectively, it's very more tricky. Subjectively, this is some kind of personal significance. What's something like the feelings we have, the memories, the associations it evokes. So what life means to us subjectively, it's a very different thing from an objective meaning. Objective meaning is more or less, I would say, a definition. Subjectively, what life means to us, it's kind of this, what it evokes in us. And that's all depending on what kind of state of mind you have. If you're a pessimistic person, you'll say negative things. What it means to us, well, life is just suffering. If you're a positive person or a very simple person, I don't want to be mean, but you can just be a simple-minded person that enjoys the little things, which is a great thing. I mean it as a compliment, but literally, then you can say, well, life is just joy. It's not never that simple, right? It's a very difficult thing. But when we ask purpose, it's a whole different thing. You're not really asking what it is. You're asking why and what should I do? The purpose of life, you're no longer asking what the definition of life is. You're no longer asking how it makes you feel. You're asking kind of this bigger thing. What should I do with this? Now I am conscious. I'm here. What is my course of action in here? What is my aim? What is my goal? What should I do? Why am I here now? So that's the core definition of a meaning and purpose. I have an object over here. If you're not watching, it's a chair. It's quite literally a fucking chair. And I really thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. And I think I've cracked the code with this one. So first of all, to differentiate the meaning of this thing, of this object, and the purpose. We'll start up with the meaning, since that's not our primary subject of this presentation. Okay, so we have this object. In case you're not watching, imagine a chair. It's quite literally a wooden chair. Very simple wooden chair you would have in some kind of standard kitchen. So first, let's ask the meaning. Now, first of all, it's very important to note with both of these things, it can all be answered with different perspectives. When it comes to meaning, you have the physical perspective, artistic, sentimental, fucking shit ton of perspectives you can have to answer how our meaning is. And then you have the three primary meanings you can answer about this object, this chair. So the objective meaning, well, if we just want to ask the linguistic meaning, what this thing is, what it expresses, what it represents, well, it's a chair. It's quite simple. The physical meaning, I don't know, it's a four-legged wooden object made out of wood. I don't know. But then you have the subjective meaning, sentimental meaning. What does this chair mean to you? It means a lot to me because it was the chair that was in my grandma's kitchen. Okay, great. And then we can have the intersubjective meaning. This would be what more people culturally would understand, what it would subjectively signify to more people, intersubjectively. This is my understanding, because subjective is a personal meaning. It can be grandma's chair, and intersubjectively, five of us, we all know that. That is our intersubjective meaning. But a subjective meaning for me, my lovely grandma, I always get food at her house. Oh, I love that chair. For my grandpa, it would be, man, I fucking hate that chair. She would always sit there and yell at me. So, like, even though the intersubjective meaning is same, or at least similar, subjective meaning is always personal. Okay, so we have that, we understand that, meaning we don't really have to care much about that. But purpose, this is where things get tricky, we'll dive more deeply into it. So, once again, you can answer from different perspectives. What is the intention, aim, goal, why it is, what it is for. That's what we'll go off. We'll go off of why does it exist, what is it for. Why it exists, and what is it for. Now, perspectives, you can answer this from, also vary. There's an incredible amount of them. Some very common examples we can use for this specific object. A chair is a practical perspective, what it is practically for, why does it practically exist. It's a spiritual perspective, so this is more transcendental, more philosophical. And then a health perspective, maybe. And that can be tied to the practical one. They don't really have to be all exclusive. There can be little ties between them. And what I've found out by some deeper thinking is that when we look at the purpose of an object, there's kind of three primary purposes we can differentiate. So we first can ask the intended purpose. We differentiate with time. It's the way we understand reality. With time, things happen in the past, things happen now, things will happen in the future. Oh, yeah, time is very complicated philosophically, but it's quite the most simple understanding we can have of something. And we can also have it with an object, and it helps us a lot. So what was the intended purpose? It can either be individual for one individual chair, or universal. Universal is kind of reducing it. Individual is going more deeply into it. There can be one individual chair that has a very different purpose from the universal purpose of chairs. And we'll look more deeply into it. So then we have the active purpose. This is what would be in the present. So we're no longer in the past, or it was intended to be used for. Why did it begin to exist? This is the active. This is now. Why does it exist? Now. Conventionally agreed would be the most simple way to describe this active purpose. But once again, it's not that simple. We'll get more into it. And lastly, the last way to differentiate purpose would be potential purpose. It would be the future. So we had the past, the present, and well, logically, the only thing that we have left to look into is the future. And that depends on our creativity / knowledge. So let's look more deeply into it to understand what this really means. What are these three differentiates of purpose? So first of all, let's look into the intended purpose. Now, if we look at the intended purpose, we can differentiate it into individual / universal. But looking into it more deeply, it would seem that it's very simple, right? So if you want to answer it simply, universal purpose of chair. Why? What was the intended purpose of the creation of this? Well, it would be to be sat on. That is why universally chairs are mostly created. Individually, you can say, oh, there was one chair created to use as a film prop, to decorate a room, to sell on a market. Well, that doesn't really have to mean that it doesn't have multiple purposes. And this is the first important lesson that we learn in this video. There can be more purposes. Now, the second very important lesson is, with the intended purposes, that not only is it the intention behind the use, there's also the other side of the coin, which is the intentions behind creation. So, universally, chairs, even though they're made for the use, their purpose is to be sat on. It's not the only reason they're made. What were the intentions behind creation? Well, quite simply, to make money. But that's the world we live in. Universally, that's why chairs were made. So you not only have to look at the intended purpose as what it was created for, but why it actually was created. Remember the definition. Why does it exist? Well, most of our chairs, they exist because there's something that we will buy as customers, and they were used as something that the big firms will sell to us. And that doesn't reduce it to just an object you will spend money on, and that's it. That's it. Ganzo. Same thing goes for it, that theoretically, if we have this individual part, I have some examples, right? So there's the intentions behind creation, practicing joinery, making money, artistic expression. It doesn't mean that this thing, if it's to use this chair as a film prop, and it was created by practicing joinery, so there's a practitioner practicing joinery, and he just makes this, and it then is used as a film prop, well, after it is no longer needed, it can be used for a different purpose. It can be sold on that market, it can be used to decorate some kind of room, it can be used in a museum, it can be used for a person to sit there. So the first very important lesson is there's two kind of factors when creating something. It is the creator and the whole creation. So you don't really have to look at it that simply. If you want to look at what's the purpose of life, which we will not be looking at. Our primary objective is what is the purpose of your life, specifically, your singular of an individual person. But if you want to look at the purpose of existence, this would kind of be the way to go about it. You don't only have to look at the intention, what is it used for now, but why it might have been created, and that's very difficult. Another very difficult and important lesson is that claimed intentions may differ from actual intentions. There's a huge factory that creates chairs and claims that, well, we're doing this for the goodness of people. Well, yeah, that can be true, and it can be part of the truth. It's not, we have said before, there can be many purposes, but is it the primary one? I mean, most likely not, it's just making money. Now, if it was making chairs that are healthy for people, which no one seems to really be doing in a more major scale, I'm pretty sure there's companies specializing at making chairs that will be healthier when you sit on them for 20 years. Their primary purpose probably would be that it is to make healthier chairs. As a result of that, they will make money. So as a result of that, there can arrive a new purpose. So this is very important to really listen deeply and think about this. And you're slowly making the connections of, okay, so what if I look at my life individually as this chair? I know it's just a chair, but it will get more crazy, trust me. So we go on with the active purpose. This is a chair, it is created, it exists now. How do we understand the purpose of this object now, at this very moment, at this very present moment? Well, conventionally, we have agreed that it is most reasonable to use chairs to sit on them. But that's not very true. You have to look at the context. The chair right now I am sitting on, yes, it's being used to sit on. But let's say in a museum, well, it really depends on the context. There's two kind of chairs. One you can sit on, and then there can even be a chair as an exhibit. In a shop, you wouldn't standardly sit on the chair to rest on it if it's a product. So it would more be a product. In a courtroom, a chair can even signify hierarchy. It's very interesting to see that it's such a simple object. Since it's used in this human world, it won't ever be so flaccid. It won't ever just be a chair. No object will ever just be a singular flaccid thing. Even though we have some kind of conventional agreement that when we look at the context of something, when you go into a school, you know that a chair is there for you to sit on. And you also have this kind of hierarchy. You have those 30 chairs for the students, one chair for the teacher. We mustn't overlook the potential. And that's the last part of a purpose, the potential purpose, future. With this, we can actually look at what all things can this be used for. And you have endless possibilities. As I have said before, with the glass in my room, I can use it for different things, so it goes for this chair. That just depends on our creativity/knowledge. If I had more knowledge, I would come up with more examples. I have written here to sit on, to stand on, so you have to reach somewhere, to use as a weapon, to burn for heat, to decorate a room. Now, if I used more time, I put more creativity into it, I put more knowledge into it, I don't know, I would come up with some other stuff, right? There's probably 1,000 other uses for a chair that I don't even know right now. The whole point is, even though an object can be contextually reduced and we have some kind of conventional agreement, even though there are some intentions behind creating it, it doesn't have to be limited to that. There's a whole ton of potential. It's all about experimenting and just trying out and not staying stiff, just as this chair. Right? Okay, so now we have the necessities over. We have covered the knowledge of what purpose is. We have the 3 times of purpose: intended purpose, active purpose, potential purpose. We have dove deep into what a purpose of a chair is. But now, what is the purpose of my life? What is the purpose of an individual life? And now we get to the juicy part. Finally, let's go. So, we look at an individual. Once again, if you're not watching, it's a picture of a guy. Instead of a chair, right now we have a person, a human being. For the purpose of this video, we'll be using a man. It's a more practical thing for me to be talking about because I understand it more since I'm a man myself. I'm sorry if you're a woman like for discriminating you, but it's most generally talking about a human being. We're not trying to reduce it to a purpose of a single guy, of a single human being, to be more exact. But I'll be speaking about it in male terms, so don't be offended. Thank you. So we will look at the meaning, what this thing, this picture we have over here, what it expresses, what it represents. The objective meaning would be that it's a human man, it's a human male, right? Then subjective meaning would be, well, I don't know this guy. I've seen this picture on Google. Okay, cool. I've seen this. Whoa. And then the intersubjective meaning would be, oh, this guy looks, he has a blue t-shirt. I don't fucking know, man. Like, we don't really care about the meaning. We go into the purpose. So let's start off with intended purpose. So first of all, we'll only look into the intentions behind creation. And with this, we're going to dive more deeply. So with chair, we just kind of covered the ground. Let's go more deeply into it. So what's really important? We first must differentiate from what science claims and what we as human beings claim. And I wouldn't just want to reduce our human existence into what science claims, because even though scientifically that is the way things kind of are, it's not really the world we live in. When you have children, let's say scientifically, we'll get into it, but let's say scientifically they say, oh, it's just because of evolutionary and biological reasons. Yeah, but you're not kind of really this robot that thinks, I'm going to have children because my nature tells me. No, you really think about it, and you claim you have other reasons, right? So I did some research. Well, I made fucking ChatGPT do a deep research about this, and there was some study that claimed that the most common reasons for having children were happiness and joy. So, what's the lesson to learn from that? Happiness and joy. So if people claim that happiness and joy was the intention behind creation, isn't that directly tied to the intention behind use? It's very interesting. Now, one perspective can be kind of this pessimistic that I was just born to make my parents' life less empty. I mean, yeah, that's a very pessimistic thing to really think about. But that's not the reality you live in. You are alive, you have your own life, you have your own freedom. And if your intended purpose behind your creation, I don't want to sound sociopathic, but we unfortunately have to kind of approach it this way. But if it was just happiness and joy, I mean, it's not really that much of a burden, right? Like, think about it. You were just created to exist. I mean, that's kind of sweet, isn't it? That's just a claim to universal, right? Like, that's what people claim. I'm not saying that all people have happy families. I don't want to reduce it to that. But let's go into another claimed universal, and that's love and family bond. So it seems that for us humans, and that is one thing that I've learned, how important company is. We're all alone on this earth full of people. It's so strange to think about how every one of us is alone. So company is all about not feeling alone. You can help so much to anyone that feels that. So next up, fulfillment and meaning. That was the third most claimed reason for people universally having children. Fulfillment and meaning. For a lot of people, the meaning of their life is children. Now, whether or not that is positive to you, to think about that you are the meaning of someone's life, or it's like a big pressure upon you, it depends on you, but that's just the thing that people claim. Next up would be legacy and tradition. So this is a very interesting thing. A lot of philosophers say that a big reason for why people have children is to kind of leave a mark on this earth. And it's one of the things we naturally lean towards. As we have said in the beginning of the presentation, for the sake of this video, we'll assume that when you die, you stop existing, but the universe continues. And I think a lot of us kind of realize that it might be this way, and we don't really want to die. We want to leave a mark on this earth. So that's very interesting. And one of the ways to do this is children, quite literally, they will bear your name. So if you think about it, that you were created to bring happiness and joy, to be company, and to just continue this kind of tradition and to build this legacy. I mean, in a way it's pretty motivational in my opinion. I don't know. It's maybe just my positive perspective right now. Maybe if I'm in a worse mood, I'll say it's not that positive. And lastly, some people even say that for practical and economical reasons. Oh, it's a very sad thing to say. You would have children for these reasons. But yeah. And one other thing I want to say, when people say that they have children out of love and they want to caretake of something or someone, I mean, it's half truth. I do believe that. They think that. But I've never been really much of a fan of that because there's a lot of children that need adoption. They need someone to take care of them and they have no one. There's already enough children on this earth that are alone. Well, why would you bring more people into it? Like, think about that. Really think about that. I'm trying to convince my girlfriend of when we will have children, like, I wouldn't mind adopting someone. I know I also have this in me, this nature, that I would kind of want to have my own blood. But, like, it's just my ego, man. And it's so, I don't know. Like, I think there's a lot of children that already need taking care of. Why would I just say, fuck them? I'm going to have my own child. Like, I don't know. Seems kind of selfish in my opinion. So, okay, so we go on with scientific universal. So this is different. This is, once again, intentions behind creation. This is the intended purpose still. We haven't gotten to the intentions behind use. We're still why it was created. But now we don't look at what people claim. We look at what science claims. That's kind of three major points. From biology, it was evolutionary programming. We're evolutionary programmed. As Agent Smith said in The Matrix, we're a virus. So we just keep on spreading and spreading and spreading. We're evolutionary programmed to have children. From a psychological standpoint, it gives our lives meaning and value. So it's very interesting that the purpose of your life is giving meaning to life or someone else's life. It can also make you grow and build legacy. So it's very interesting that I also see this with myself, and I can kind of imagine it with children, that it kind of makes you grow. It makes you more determined, more motivated. Since I've had a girlfriend, I'm more locked in. I don't want to sound cringe, but I'm way much more locked in. And from a sociological standpoint, you can also say it's kind of the norm and there's pressure on you. And that's very true. I know my grandma told me that back in the day, I think it was more extreme back in the day. Now we don't really care that much about social norms, fortunately. But I think there's still this pressure. It's kind of this invincible pressure. You don't really say it, but it is there. And I know back then, it wasn't as invincible. It was more, people talked about it more. And it's very hard to avoid it. I understand it. And my grandma told me, like, back in the day, when someone was 25 years old, a woman was 25 years old, and she didn't have children, she was weird. And that's just kind of hard to, like, we're not bullying others into having children, if you think about it. That's kind of sad. So there's you can see there's a big difference that people just say they have it for happiness and joy. And science just says, well, you're programmed to have children. But it doesn't really seem to be such a giant gap between it. Now, it's up on you what lesson you take from this. But we have learned with the chair that the reasons why it was created and what it was created for doesn't really have to correspond with what it will be actively used for now. So then we look at the intentions behind use. And before we look into it, I want to read you a part of an amazing book called Mastery by Robert Greene. He says, discovering your calling, the life's task. You possess a kind of inner force that seeks to guide you toward your life's task, what you are meant to accomplish in the time that you have to live. In childhood, this force was clear to you. It directed you toward activities and subjects that fit your natural inclinations, that sparked a curiosity that was deep and primal. In the intervening years, the force tends to fade in and out as you listen more to parents and peers. There's that social pressure you have, to the daily anxieties that wear away at you. This can also be that kind of evolutionary programming. I have read somewhere that we're programmed to be scared of tigers, and now we are scared of texting a girl. This can be the source of your unhappiness, your lack of connection to who you are and what makes you unique. The first move toward mastery is always inward. Learning who you are, learning who you really are, and reconnecting with that innate force. So Robert kind of claims there was this innate force, this innate seed inside of you that was planted. You have kind of forgotten it, you got scared, and now you have to go back to it. You reconnect with that innate force, knowing it with clarity. You will find your way to the proper career path, and everything else will fall into place. It is never too late to start this process. These words are so important. So important. So that is how we will approach the intentions behind the use. So we have this Socratic motto on screen, in case you're not watching, that says, know thyself. Fun fact, he didn't actually come up with that, but whatever. And he couldn't have said that since he has never written anything. So, like, I don't know why it's quoted to him. I didn't even say if why the quote is given to him, but whatever. I'll just pretend. So, know thyself is our way to find out this intention behind use. Because you're not a chair, right? You're a singular existing form of life. And it is inside you. It's always inside you. As Robert has told us, as Robert Greene has told us, it is inside you. It is this innate thing. So in order to find this is something that's discoverable through self-reflection. It's usually suppressed with age and society and scared thoughts and whatever. So it is these childhood inclinations and personal calling. Now, it is very difficult to say how to find this. We can say what it is, but how do I find what was my intended purpose? I would recommend this. Don't let yourself be suppressed by society. Don't let yourself be contextually reduced. And look inward into you. Discover yourself, know thyself. Experiment. Keep experimenting, keep trying. Think back to what is calling you. Think back to what is you. What you are most natural in. There's a lot of things that most of us can learn. We can learn to run. We can learn to play golf. And there's a shit ton of people that can learn to play golf like Tiger Woods. They have the potential. They just don't have the discipline. But there's a lot of people that are more natural in some things. There's this book called Frames of Mind that claims the theory that we kind of have these specific areas of intelligence. Intelligence is just not this flaccid black and white, or you're either more intelligent or less intelligent. No, you either have a lot of kinetic intelligence, mathematical intelligence, linguistic intelligence, and a bunch of more. So you really have to know thyself, discover that, go back to your calling, and discover what you were born for. It's a very lengthy process. It's not simple. It's a lifelong process. But we now know that, okay, so the intentions behind creation, those individually, I mean, go and ask your parents, right? They might claim something. Is it the truth? I don't know. But the intention behind use, it's not use. Well, a chair is an object. Nobody asks it what it wants to do, right? Yes, sure, your parents might have had some use for you, but the use is you. You are the one using. Imagine if the chair wanted to do whatever it wanted to do. Well, it would have an existential crisis, just like we do nowadays. So you really have to know thyself. Next up, active purpose. So we have differentiated with conventionally agreed and contextual reduction. We start with the conventionally agreed active purpose of a human being. Simply put, it's actually not that complicated. If we look at the society we live in, when we live in a society which is just us agreeing that we will respect each other. You walk on the street, you don't punch this guy, he will not punch you. Respecting society, we also have this kind of it's all about non-verbal agreements. So we respect each other, first of all. Second of all, we contribute a little. That's by paying taxes and stuff. Unfortunately, there's this kind of middleman that, and this is today's day and age, the middleman is the guy that just kind of makes this all happen, but he takes an unreasonable amount of cut, which is the state. They kind of make this all happen. They make this order, which is not perfect, but at least we have it. It's great we have it. But they take an unreasonable amount of cut for doing it. Fucking assholes. And then, lastly, partaking in social roles. Now, I don't want to have this kind of deterministic approach when we like saying we're all slaves. Not really. I wouldn't really. I would say that's just too pessimistic. We're not really all slaves. We kind of have more freedom than we realize, to be honest. But you kind of have to partake in these social roles, and that's not necessarily to say you have to play circus. You have to put on a mask and pretend. Like, but you just have to partake in it. It's like, I don't want to have this Machiavellian approach to say we're all playing theater. You can do that. I mean, that's not necessarily a necessary role that is conventionally agreed. It happens a lot, but I think the main conventionally agreed active purposes of a human being in a society is that we respect each other, we contribute a little, and we partake in these social roles, and we kind of push humanity a little further, and we kind of all can live together, right? And with that is tied social roles. You contribute, the policeman gets a bit of the money you contribute, and he has the responsibility to help you. So you're kind of all tied together. Unfortunately, there's some societies where this works better. For example, in Sweden, I have heard that people are happy to pay taxes. In my country, people are happy to fucking not pay taxes because there's a lot of corruption. Fortunately, that's a sad reality. What do I do with it? Well, I don't know. I'm not a fucking politician. But then, the active purpose. So this is the general one. But then you have different contexts you find yourself in. And you have to look at it towards something, someone, plus a situation. It's not that simple. It would seem very simple that in a workplace, you would be producing, contributing. I have a picture of Bob the Builder. Well, what's his purpose? Contextually, he's a builder, so he builds. But it's not all he does. He has a lot of fun in it. He has a lot of stories. He has a lot of situations. So once again, there's more purposes. You have to look at the situations. You don't have to let yourself be contextually reduced. In a school, learning, progressing. But once again, it's not the simple purpose you have in school. I do let myself be contextually reduced in school, to be honest, but in a workplace I don't, because it's a very different thing when I want to do something and I don't want to do something. So let's say while I was a bartender, I didn't let myself get contextually reduced in that workplace as only being a server. And instead I thought, okay, so people go here to have fun. They have their own lives, they have their own works, they go here, they just want to relax for a little. How about I be a friend to them? And that's the way I approached it. I never really try-harded to make drinks very fancy and very fast. No, I just kind of tried to be a chill guy that talks to people, and it was actually great. I had a lot of fun doing that. So some contexts are very hard to not let yourself be contextually reduced. For example, in an army, serving and obeying, well, unfortunately, that's kind of the path. I'm not saying that there won't be situations where you don't have to do that. For example, let's say in an army, a friend of yours or a co-soldier is sad and talks to you about it. Well, in that certain situation, well, you're no longer contextually reduced because now you're in a different situation. And though you're still in an army, you can now be an empathetic friend to a person. You can kind of find your own active purpose even though you're being contextually reduced. And then we have some kind of situations where you think about it and it's not that simple. So in a school, they tell you what to learn. In a workplace, they tell you what to do. But what if you're on a family trip? This is where things get tricky. Not so long ago, I was on a family trip. I was sitting in the car, in the backseat of the car. I was looking out the window and I was thinking, I'm not doing anything. What is my active purpose right now? How would I even know? Because I don't know. I don't have anything to do right now. And I just realized, oh, so towards this situation, towards these people, it is such a beautiful active purpose. It is literally just to be, the being itself. I'm not being contextually reduced. So that's very interesting. So it seems that life is very deterministic and we're almost these slaves, but that's just not the case. When you look at it more and more, there's a lot of situations where you kind of have this freedom to just be. It's such a beautiful thing when you can just be. Another example is watching a movie with your girlfriend. Do you have some kind of active purpose? Yeah, you can find that the active purpose would be to enjoy it, to have fun, to have a great time with your lover. But at the end of the day, it is just to be. Such a beautiful thing to look at. Same as playing with a pet. There's some kind of bigger active purpose. No, it's just having fun. Just this. So that's why it's said in that previous example that it seems his life purpose seems just to be having fun. But I think that person may just not let himself be contextually reduced. And it's such a beautiful thing to look at. Lastly, we could look at potential purpose. And this is quite literally the most important one. Well, it depends. And you have to really be hungry in life. That is why we have purpose. Because we have something to strive for. I've said this before, I will say it again. It's the way we function. When we have something to strive for, it gives our life meaning. Gives our life purpose, quite literally. And there's a shit ton of potential purposes. If you're a great golfer, your potential purpose might be to be a great golfer. If you're a great boxer, your potential purpose might be, well, you might be the fucking best boxer in the world. There's a lot of potential purposes. One of them might just be to be, is this something you really want to strive for? I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's great to know that there are some situations where you can just be. It's very positive to look at. You don't always have to be productive. I hate this kind of mindset that you always have to be non-stop productive, right? So when we look at all possible potential purposes of a human being, it might be bring joy to others, to yourself, to the world, while you are here, to push humanity further, just a tiny bit further, just do one thing, to inspire others, to explore and understand reality. You have just been thrown here. It doesn't mean that just because things were explored and understood before, you then have to do it for yourself, right? I mean, there's a shit ton of movies all people have seen, but you still go and see it for yourself, right? To help others and to change a bit of the world. So that to me is very inspiring. So the lesson we learned from this is there's kind of 3 very important steps to finding the purpose of your life. And it can be this bigger thing. It's up on you, right? If you have this kind of bigger mission, this intention, this goal, you have to really strive for it. You have to really go for it. You have to be disciplined. That's very important. But 3 steps to actually finding it, in case you haven't, is first of all, discover your initial purpose through self-realization. It's the most important one. Go back to your childhood. Go back to that innate calling, what it called you, what it was. Experiment. And really self-realize. And then act on it. Second of all, avoid full active contextual reduction. Sure, you have to make some kind of money to survive. I do as well. Go ahead and do that. But avoid full active contextual reduction. If you have a job, work 8 hours a day on that job. Then in your free time, work on that intention, on that goal, on that innate thing. Go and find it. Find the calling and then work on it. And lastly, fulfill your potential purpose. That said, good luck. Thank you for listening. Subscribe and like. Thank you.